We're going to be in Exodus chapter 16 tonight. If you have your Bible, you turn there, or you can scroll there on your tablet or your phone, however you have it. Chapter 16. We're going to just we'll skim through the whole chapter when we get there in just a moment. So we'll just pick up some of the highlights from it. We'll have the prayer in just a second, but as always, a reminder, please keep reading. We don't take the time in the class to read so that we can have more discussion and get a lot of application and share the wisdom that we have with each other. But don't forget to read in between. Make sure you have everything tied into that so that you remember the context, so that we all do. We don't just want to lift a verse out of something and make it to be something it's not. So let's have a word of prayer. Father, thank you for this evening. Thank you for everyone that's here, every family, every child, teenager, every adult. Father, we're thankful that we've had the opportunity to be here tonight, to encourage each other, and at this moment to open up the book of Exodus, to read this account of the giving of manna, to find ourselves within this story as well, and that our faith will grow, that we will learn from those who have walked before us. That we will learn from their choices, their decisions, whether good or bad or healthy or unhealthy, and that we will make the decisions based on trust in you, and trust in your word. Father, increase our faith. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, so just a quick map, kind of, again, putting things in perspective. So you got the Red Sea over here where everyone would have crossed, about 1 million or so people. When it came to leaving Egypt and crossing the Red Sea, they traveled probably 30, 40 miles or so. And last week we got to Exodus 15 where they are in a place called Manna, where the water is bitter. They complain, they grumble, throw the log into the water. The bitter water is made sweet. We talked about that, and then they travel about probably about 12 and a half miles or so, maybe a little further, whatever it may be. And they come to this place called Elim. If you read in the text, it's full of fresh water, palm trees. It's kind of just your oasis, if you will. Just kind of think oasis. Then they travel down here where this map calls it the second Red Sea encampment, where they take a break, so they leave Elim, and then they travel into this area called the wilderness of sin. So that's where this account, that chapter 16 is. That's where this is going to take place. So you're seeing the wilderness of Shur, very brief oasis, and then you're right into the wilderness of sin, and then we're going to continue to travel up. So it's wilderness, very brief break, wilderness. Encourage you to look it up. You can get all kinds of maps. You can see how well it is. But these are desolate places. That wilderness of sin is not what you're thinking in terms of sin. They're not there because they did something wrong. That's just what it's called in that regard. So it's Exodus 16. This is the account, as you can tell from the heading probably in your Bible. This is manna. This is the account where they receive bread from heaven, and it's just going to be a very pivotal account. So all four of these, remember, on the other side of the Red Sea, they crossed over on dry ground. They're now in the wilderness, making their way to the Promised Land. There are 4 accounts, 4 stories that all serve as a test for their faith, but even more than that, as a test of their trust. Every obstacle they meet, everything that they meet, will they believe, will they trust, or will they do the opposite? What will they do? And that's kind of for us as well. No matter what we face, will we trust? Or will we do something else? What will we do? What will be the message? So as we go through this, I'm not going to read the whole thing. As always, just you take the time to read it. Hope you'll do that. But according to verses 2 and 3, what do the people do with their complaints? So we see the pattern. They complain, right? They grumble, which is exactly what they did prior. But there's something that they do different. And it's not in the text, but it's a word that I'm looking for. And see if you can get it. If not, I'll give you a couple of clues. But what is it that they do with their complaint? What is it that they do with their complaint? What was that, Sam?
They sort of compared to how good they had it back in Egypt.
Okay, so we had it good, right? So it's not just the complaint, but it's, oh man, we had all these things. This is the first time, probably within about 7 days, maybe 10 days at the most, being removed from crossing over the Red Sea. 10 days. Look at how good we had it. Look at all the things that were available to us.
It seems like they're shooting the messenger.
Okay, so it seems like Moses is just going to be the poor guy, and Aaron will be the guys that catch it, which is what leaders normally are treated as. You're there. But going to Stan's point, all right, look how good we had it. There's a word that we use to describe that kind of mentality. What is it? Do you think that it's a word that I know we're kind of warming up a little bit, but it's a
Envy?
not envy,
Hindsight?
not hindsight. I am so hungry, I could eat a horse. Exaggeration. Look at how good Egypt was. Look how good it was. We had, and this again, it's the first time we'll have it, and this won't be the last time. But look at what we had when we sat by the meat pots and ate bread to the full. I don't remember that about 4 or 5 chapters ago. I don't remember that description of Egypt. So they exaggerate. Why do we exaggerate? It's not, we kind of get there. So somebody says, I'm just so hungry I could eat a horse. So we exaggerate. But what's really going on behind the scene? What's at the root of an exaggeration? Worry. I'm so hungry. The idea could be, I'm worried I'm not going to get anything for that. Okay? What else? We got worry.
Make sure you get the point.
Make sure you get the point. Okay, you mean like getting it?
I'm really hungry. So what? I'm hungry as a horse. I can eat a horse.
Okay. All right.
I get it.
So,
woe is me.
okay. So you kind of exaggerate to really emphasize this isn't just I think I could go for a snack. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay? All right.
They're forgetting that God's in charge.
Okay, so maybe part of it is a forgetfulness. I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. Well, if I say that at 7:30 in the morning, that makes sense because I haven't probably eaten in about 12 hours. But if I say that at 12:30 in the afternoon, but I ate breakfast at 7:30, that's a different story. So it could be some forgetfulness, Jeff.
I was just thinking it's to make it non-debatable. You don't want to have anybody counter what you're saying.
Okay, all right. I didn't think about it that way. So we're gonna make it this embellishment, this exaggeration. You can't debate with us. You can't. This is how it is.
For attention.
Okay, could be attention. Could be attention.
Justify your position?
It could be for justification.
Would it be like manipulative in a way?
Sure, it could be.
Trying to get their way through the exaggeration.
Yeah. I mean, I see the end. I see something, whatever it is.
So it seems a little bit like first complaint is they running out of water. Okay. Then this one seems like show me your next trick kind of thing, and this is the way we get that.
It could be, absolutely. That it very well could be a manipulative thing. God answered last time. Let's see if we'll do it again. It very well could be a testing. God will later say that in the next chapter. You tested me at the waters of Meribah. David.
This seems different to me than saying I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. This is divisive.
Ah, yes.
Hungry I could eat a horse isn't divisive. I'm
Right.
just being humorous.
Yeah.
But this is divisive. This is
Yes.
to make a side.
No, it is for sure. The idea was just to get us to think of the exaggeration of whatever it is. Exaggeration makes something to be bigger than what it really is. Or in this case, to make Egypt look a whole lot better than what it was. We sat by the meat pots. Yeah, you sat by the meat pots for sure, there's no doubt. But that was after you gathered straw, made bricks, and were probably beaten by Egyptians. Right?
I'm not going to throw stones at them because I probably would be right there with them, but there is no vision.
Yes,
There's no vision looking out
Yeah.
at what the Lord is going to do.
yes.
They're thinking backwards.
They are. And that's what exaggeration does. It goes backwards. And I think you mentioned this last week, Scott. There should have been something because the pillar of cloud by day, the pillar of cloud by night. Something's there to kind of keep them grounded. Whatever the internal reason is, the reason I ask that is to get us thinking, why did I exaggerate earlier today with something? Because I'm pretty sure I exaggerated somewhere along the way. And this meal is taking a long time to come. Really? I don't know, Elisha, is it? Boy, this day is the longest day ever. Am I sure it is? Because I think every day's got 24 hours in it. And the idea is for us to reflect and not look backwards. And if you look through the Old Testament and the wisdom literature, Solomon warns us, or the writer of Ecclesiastes warns us of this in Ecclesiastes 7:10. Don't look for the good old days.
I don't understand why they, in the next thing where they say if we'd only died at the Lord's hand, I mean, that's an exaggeration too, in a sense.
Sure. The exaggeration just multiplies. It goes further. It just goes further. It just reveals a deeper sense of it. The point being for us, boy, it was so much easier 50 years ago. Are we sure it was? I mean, but we say this. And Solomon says, wisdom, yeah, you're thankful for the past. There are things to be thankful for sure. But if all we're going to do is look at the present, and all it's going to do is make us bitter or negative, perhaps manipulative, perhaps just driven by an appetite of something, and it doesn't even have to be food. It can be something else. Whatever it is, what's causing me to exaggerate to the point that I'm missing out on what's in front of me? And even more than that, that's making me take my eyes off the one who is leading and guiding. And here's the theme in all four of them, the one who is providing. Right, this is God. And we don't have any water. All right. Throw the piece of wood in there, and it turns sweet. Not a few days later, oh, the meat pots. Oh, if we would have just died by the hand of the Lord than to be in this wilderness. And it's just for us to insert ourselves, and we're kind of no different. And this is part of thankfulness. This is part of gratefulness, these antidotes, these vaccines that go against those types of mentalities that rob us of what today holds. Go ahead, Stan.
Get back to what David said a while ago, just being divisive. I just think about that human nature hasn't changed in the last several thousand years, because I think part of it is, to just say something exaggerated, and then you get a group, you get angry and upset about it, and before long you've got a riot on your hands. And then people will do things in a crowd that they would not dare do on their own.
That's a good point, too.
And so, you start a rebellion that way. Of course, we've seen it in our own society, many examples of that
Sure.
in the last several years of just, and particularly now with the internet and social media, you can say anything you want to, and you can grab a crowd and regardless of whether it's true or not. So.
That's a good point. You just rile it up. You rile it up. And David has a great point. It is divisive. It's just this, despite what they know, even if it's just a little bit, they still know. And the thought process with each one is, if he can divide the water of the Red Sea, what can he do with this bitter water? Oh, he can turn it sweet. If he can divide the water of the Red Sea and turn the water that is bitter into sweet, what can he do when we do not have any food? The growth process. And granted, because you and I kind of talked about this too, if that's okay to share this, God's got to get them up to speed. We got to get to where we're going. I got a plan. I got a mission. You got to catch up to speed. He's not wasting any time to get them up to speed. Every challenge is going to be the question, and the answer always lies in what God did before. That's the point. It's to learn to trust that. David?
So I had a question. What made me think about it was that people take cider and they put cinnamon sticks in it. So this wood got put into this water. Every time I've read this, I've just imagined this big lake full of water and the wood gets thrown in there. And then recently I started thinking, well, you know what? It could be talking about, 50-gallon pots of water and little sticks. Is that an insane thought?
I have no idea. I don't know. I envision Moses telling a couple of guys to go pick up that dead tree and chunk it in there and roll it in there. It's most likely what they did. It's what I envisioned. The whole point was that God made it in such an unexpected way, but he did it. And that's what Israel is supposed to learn. He did it. There isn't anything too big for him. It's big for us. It's impossible for us, but it's not for him.
It may be more analogous to Naaman dipping himself in the river than actually some
Correct.
chemical process.
Yeah, and it's the absurdity of it. It's just kind of to the human perspective, the absurdity of it, which is this one. Because God's answer is to do what? To provide them. How's he going to provide them food? What's he going to do? Okay, he's going to send bread from heaven. Now, they are not going to know what this is. There's no concept of it. So I would be amazed, too, if I walked out and a meal's ready to go. But nonetheless, it's what happens. So take a quick glance at verses 4 through 8 and tell me what the rule for the manna is. So this bread's going to rain down. Nobody knows what it is. That's literally what the name manna means. What is this? So, but God has some rules or condition, or however we want to describe it, in verses 4 through 8. What are they?
They go out and pick up enough every morning for that day.
Okay.
And they do that every day except for the Sabbath. They do it for the 2 days.
Okay, so for 6 days, you pick up whatever you need, and you do that for 6 days, and then on the sixth day, you pick up your extra. So you pick up essentially 2 days worth. All right, what else? There's some other things.
Don't keep any over, or it's gonna rot, stink, and be full of worms.
Okay, so don't, all right, so with what Sharon was saying in terms of the rule, pick up what you need, but pick up literally what you need. Don't, well, I might need an afternoon snack, or this is for my 2 o'clock thing. No, that's not how it works. You pick up what you need. Don't take extra, just pick up what you need. All right, what else? And don't keep it because it's going to rot and all of that. But is there anything else that you see in verses 4 through 8?
On Saturday, they have to gather twice as much. On the day before the Sabbath, they have to gather twice as much.
Okay, so the day before they got to gather twice as much, which is interesting because the rule was don't take extra. So what keeps the extra on the Sabbath from spoiling or rotting all that? A miracle is taking place in the whole thing. I mean, it's just a miracle all the way through in this provision. So we'll talk about some practical aspects of this. Look at, I think it's verse 7. In verse 7. In the morning you shall see the glory of the Lord because he heard your grumbling against the Lord. Why is the provision of manna each morning a revealing of God's glory? And think about this for a moment. God is jealous for his glory. And he mentioned the last time we saw this phrase, I will get glory over Pharaoh. Remember, he said, I'm going to use these plagues, I'm going to do these things, and I will receive glory over Pharaoh. And he says that. That's the last time we saw that. The next time we see this phrase, in that God will have glory, is when manna is provided the next morning. Why is not plagues, not an angel of death, not dividing the Red Sea, not even throwing a log or rolling a log into bitter water. He didn't even say it then. Why is the provision of manna each morning a revealing of God's glory?
Have you tried to do that?
Sir?
Have you tried to create manna in the morning?
Okay. I tried to create some breakfast this morning. It wasn't the best thing, but I tried to do something.
The point is, he's the only one that can do it. It's a miraculous thing, and no one else can do it.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Dennis.
Well, it's also interesting that, okay, he provides it,
it's available to anybody, everybody. But he doesn't pick it up and put it in their stomach. I mean, they have to do something in order to benefit from his graciousness.
Sure. The grace is there. Now go out there and get it according to what I just said. Don't pick more than what you need. Okay? What else?
It's evidence of his daily faithfulness to the nation that he has called.
Yeah, yeah. So two things that stand out. One is to Bob's point in the sense of who else is going to literally rain bread from heaven? Every day. And there's enough to feed over 1 million people. I mean, just think, we were talking a second ago about the absurdity. Just think of the amount of power it takes to feed 1 million people plus every single day, 3 times a day, 7 days a week, because you got to have extra, right? You got to be able, on that 6th day, you got to be able to provide extra. Who else can do that? And then the second is, it's a daily reminder, I'm not doing it just once. I'm not just going to make sure you have what you need once. I'm going to do it every single day. Now, to your point, Dennis, that doesn't mean that you can go do whatever you want, as we will see in just a minute. Glory is not something that you're supposed to just gobble up and keep to yourself. And we'll see an example of that. But just imagine God saying, my glory is revealed not in plagues and destruction, but in day-to-day grace. You know what the writer of Lamentations will call that? New mercies. When the writer of Lamentations says that, I wonder how many times their mind went back to the manna on that. Bob?
He must have actually made more than was necessary. Otherwise, they would be tested, as he talks about in verse, where am I just? 4, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because he's doing this to test them, see if they will or will not obey his law.
Yeah, whether he'll listen or not. And not just the test of just obedience, but just, do you see the grace that is being revealed every single morning? And you did nothing for the grace. You did nothing for the bread. Like, just think of how gracious he was to give all of us the ability to open our eyes this morning. And we didn't do anything yesterday. It's not like we lived great. It's not like we lived perfectly. It's not like we did the most. We contributed the most or donated the most yesterday. New mercies came today, and it had absolutely nothing to do with us. The rest of the day, though, it all depended on how we treated those new mercies. And what will we do with them? Before we move into the practical aspect, one thing that we do need to say, or one thing we do need to ask, is in verse 8, when the Lord gives it to you in the evening meat to eat and in the morning bread to full, because the Lord has heard your grumbling that you grumbled against him. What are we? Your grumbling is not against us, but against the Lord. So why does Moses say that? Because the text says they grumbled to Moses and to Aaron. And Moses comes back and says, let's backtrack a little bit. Let's put the manna to the side. And you're grumbling, you're complaining, you're murmuring. It actually wasn't to me. It wasn't about me. It wasn't at me. It was actually the Lord. So why is that? Terry?
Well, the Lord was the one that got them out of Egypt. Moses and Aaron were just chosen to be the leaders of the group, but they had no control over what was going to happen other than to follow what God had told them to do.
Okay.
As long as they followed what God told them to do, things went their way. It's when they didn't follow God's will or didn't obey, then that's when things went south for them or didn't go as it should have gone. They didn't listen, or they gathered too much and it rotted, or what, so forth.
Okay, all right.
So actually, it was God that caused it and created it all, so they really couldn't, Moses had nothing to do with but following direction.
Okay, so at its very core, in its most simplistic form, Moses and Aaron don't control the manna from heaven or water from a rock any more than they control the wind or whatever else. They're just there, just like the rest of the Israelites, okay? Why else would Moses categorize this as a complaint or grumbling or murmuring or whatever against the Lord as opposed to he and Aaron?
It's the Lord they're supposed to trust and obey, not Moses and Aaron.
Ah, okay. All right. It's still natural just to go right at the human figure, but it's not Moses and Aaron. So that goes back to Terry's point. It's not like they have the power to do anything either. It's the Lord that they're supposed to trust. So if you do that, it's revealing a misplaced trust. What else can you think of? Anything else?
But, I mean, God told Moses that, right? So it's sort of like the New Testament, Jesus says if they hate you, they hated me first.
Yeah.
So those were the people God chose to lead the children of Israel. So an attack on them is an attack on God.
It is. It is. And I think you're seeing God set a precedent, or Moses is going to do it, but it's really the Lord speaking through Moses, a precedent that's going to be set, because in a few chapters, they are, going to have elders within the nation of Israel. They're going to have structure, and they're going to have leadership. To speak against leaders, God's leaders, and we see this throughout the Old Testament. This is the precedent. To speak against God's leaders just because you're unhappy is to speak against God himself. To complain about God's leaders or to God's leaders, you're doing it to me. And that's a good reminder for us. That's a good reminder of our own shepherds. That's a good reminder. Are they perfect? No, because they're human beings just like the rest of us. But there is a precedent where that doesn't mean that you can let things that's a license to go speak however you want to speak.
Moses is also saying, God hears you.
Yeah, that's the other point.
He's watching you.
Yes, it's like the story of that sign where it's the apple and there's a sign that God is watching. The all-seeing eye of God is watching. But that's a good point. It's just because you're out in this wilderness doesn't mean that he's not listening, that he's not doing any of that. So I think all of that is to say, let's be mindful of how we treat our leaders. Let's be mindful of how we talk to them, how we talk about them, how we say things, especially how we say things in front of our children and what we say about them, and be mindful. Let's be careful and mind our words, because at the end, it's not us. If you want to underline something, your grumbling is not against us. It's against the Lord. We're about 10, 14 days into this journey. But go ahead.
So this is a test, right?
Seems to be the word.
I ask myself, does God want them to grumble? So that they then turn to him?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the answer to that, but he let them get hungry.
He did.
It wasn't as if, as long as we follow the cloud, we'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he let them get hungry.
Yep.
He's teaching them that they can depend upon him. He's also teaching them that they can complain to him.
Mm-hmm.
He's there.
Yes.
He's not afraid of their complaints.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, he's training them, but he knows they're human.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
No, this is why Moses, he will call it a test in Deuteronomy, but more often than not, he calls it discipline. It's the discipline of the Lord that we got to get up to speed. You're going to be this light. You're going to have this mission. I need you to, this first step is the most important step that you can trust. And then, yes, the grumbling and the complaining, you can do that because the Psalms give us permission to ask. It gives us permission to complain to a certain extent. It doesn't give us the permission to not trust that's there. And that's the training. That's the discipline. Because how else do you learn to do that unless you go without? Yes, ma'am.
The God was probably the first person who thought the way to a man's heart is through his stomach.
Maybe. I would. He knows us, so sure.
He's going to be giving a lot more rules soon. He's teaching them about following rules.
And it's not even just following the rules as much as it is. I agree with you, because the Ten Commandments are coming, and then Leviticus and so forth and so on. It's if you follow me, in the end, everything's fine. It may not look like it. It may not feel like it. And when we get into the wisdom literature, the Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, it becomes a choice of two ways. God's way or my way. Inevitably, if we choose God's way, it always ends with bitter water turning sweet, with nothing turning into an abundance, with disease turning into health. It's all of that, which is where we are. Is there enough trust to be able to, whatever's on our plate, that we know that if God's in the picture? That's what's Jesus' point. When he quoted in the wilderness, man doesn't live by bread alone, because sustenance doesn't come by that. Go ahead, Bailey, I'm sorry.
My mind went, when I read the chapter, this was 40 years. And all the world around them, nobody survives this desert more than 3 to 5 days. And so the testimony is going to be known to the whole area, to Egypt and everywhere else. If this is 1 million people for 40 years, everybody around's going to know they ain't going to survive. That's what they're saying, right? There's no way they're going to survive. And then they survive.
Mm-hmm.
How is it that they survived? It's like a testimony of the Lord to the whole area. Eventually Rahab says, we heard about you. You know, when they get ready to cross and Rahab protects them, she says, we heard about you. We know the Lord's with you. So it gets around.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is like a testimony. I just picturing that politically.
Yeah.
Just trying to picture
It is the word of the Lord goes before it, in this case. And what Isaiah would say later on, but this is an example. And I didn't think of it until you were talking. This also would be how he receives glory.
Right. Yeah.
In that. Go ahead.
Okay, so at this point, the Sabbath day as a law doesn't exist yet.
Apparently it does. There's
Well,
some concept of it.
Right, and so here's why because I thought, if the point is this is sort of like a training
Mm-hmm.
for that idea, maybe that is what it is on the 6th day. You're going to gather twice as much just as preparation.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, yeah, I mean, it could be that there's something already established, we just don't know about it, like other things, but.
Yeah. I think you're onto something. I think in concept it is, because you don't get out of Genesis 1 and 2 without God rested. So the concept of rest, as far as a day on the calendar that we can point to, no, not yet. But I think you're onto that he's kind of laying the groundwork, so when he gives the law, oh, you mean when we did that back then? Is that, I think.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Okay, yeah, that's a good idea with it. That's a good idea with it. Verses 20 through 21 and 26 and 27. Take a quick look at it. What happens? I know we know the story, but it's still good to just read it. What happens? What happens in 20 and 21, verses 20 and 21, and what happens in verse 26 and 27?
They didn't obey and it backfired.
Okay, so what is it that they did? In verse 20 and 21, what happened? What did they do? All right, they left. So remember, I didn't put it in there, but in verse 19, let no one leave any of it over until the morning. So somebody earlier said that God provided extra. Don't leave it though. Do something with it. And then verse 20 and 21, but they did not listen to Moses. Some left part of it till the morning, and it bred worms and stank. That's just a good word right there, just stank. Moses was angry with them. Morning by morning, they gathered it as much as he could eat. But when the sun grew hot, it melted. And then you fast forward to 26 and 27, what did they do?
Some didn't go there enough.
Okay.
Oh, no, listen, I'm sorry. They went out together and there wasn't any.
In verses 26 and 27. 6 days you gather. On the 7th day, some of the people went out to gather, but they found none. How long will you refuse? And that's what he said. So they did all of these things. So they laid it aside in the morning. And so I back up just a little bit. Verse 23, this is what the Lord commanded. Tomorrow is the day of solemn rest, which, Justin, this may give us a clue. A holy Sabbath. Yeah. Well, I still don't know if it's law as much as it may be practice, or there may be something in that. Close to it at least, you know, but they knew at least we're not doing anything on this, what's considered to be the Sabbath day. So they do all of this. Either way, they do exactly what they were not supposed to do. And what and everybody, and rightfully so, is disobedience. But what's at the core of disobedience? Okay, selfishness.
Lack of trust.
There it is. Why is it that I don't do this? It's plain, black and white, but why do I not do this? And the aspect of it is not anything to do with did I hear it, because I heard it, they heard it. It isn't did I comprehend it, I comprehend it. At its core, I did not trust. But that's where the layers of the onion come back. Why is it that I don't trust? I'm afraid, I'm looking at myself, whatever it is. The whole point is insert yourself in here and defeat. To a side note, I can't blame them, because I'm probably stuffing my pockets too. Because let's be honest, this is almost too good to be true. Go ahead, I'm sorry, Stan.
No, but I was going to say, I mean, pride comes to my mind more than a lack of trust, because it is, well, I'm going to do what I want to do.
Okay.
I am king of my own domain. You know, I don't need to pay attention to anything. Because everything is submission. I mean, we hate submission.
Yeah.
And all this trust is submission to God. And as humans, we tend to hate that.
Mm-hmm. If you didn't hear what Stan said, pride and a lack of submission, this is this equation. So in a shorthand, that's what he mentioned. I'm sorry, go ahead, Scott.
Just a quick point. There's an echo here, or maybe it echoes the wrong term, to the Lord's Prayer.
You're right there with me. With 5 minutes left, I just want to say this, because I know we're the Wednesday night crowd, so I can say this just drawing from everybody's memory. The Lord speaks of this encounter. He just doesn't speak to it directly, and he speaks of it 3 times in the Sermon on the Mount. The first one is give us this day our daily. It's hard for us to understand that concept, because we can go into the refrigerator, we got enough for meals for the next week. And if you got a freezer like us, you got enough for the next month.
Unless your wife is gone.
Yeah, yes. And then McDonald's has it, and Taco Bell, and all the others. The point being of that, when Jesus says in that prayer, and we miss this when we don't recite the prayer, the disciples' prayer. It is an acknowledgement that today, and today only, I am completely dependent on him. If he does not provide, what does it matter? And that's the whole idea. If I can't recognize at the beginning of this day, give me this day my daily bread, whether it's food, whether it's clothes, whether it's something else, I have not learned to trust in the one who will provide. That's number one. Number two, and this goes with this point. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust destroy. How do I know? On earth, yes. How do I know that moth and rust destroy? Because when they gathered too much manna, it was destroyed. And number 3, in that same chapter, do not worry about what you will wear, and do not worry about what you will eat, because your Father in heaven knows that. If you do that, you are no different than the Gentiles around you. So today, we look and we say, how did they not know? And yet today, just in one day, did I acknowledge my complete dependence on the Almighty. The moment I woke up, did I acknowledge new mercies and pure grace that absolutely had nothing to do with me, but all because he decided to shower with me and on you and me. Did I use this day to store up treasures on earth where moth and rust will destroy? Or have I taken what God has given and blessed somebody with it? time, money, resources. What have I done with it today? And did I spend this new day full of new mercies, complaining, grumbling, murmuring, and worrying? Or did I say thank you? Did I praise? Did I glorify? So that the testimony of the Lord could be witnessed in my own life. That's the Sermon on the Mount. This one episode has all of that. Our Lord teaches us that. This is us. We're them. We're in our wilderness. What will tomorrow look like in light of this story that we studied tonight? That's us. Let's be thankful. Let's praise. Let's worship. Let's glorify. And let's go do good with what God has given. Because today was full of new mercies. And it's all because of Him. Let's not let it just sit by the side. The class is yours.
Thank you.